Okay, in the last video, we talked about the concept of they say as an important discourse structure, rhetorical structure in academic writing. Uh, and in this video, we'll be looking at the importance, after you've entered the conversation, of how do you create your own space as a researcher, or why that's important, after you've talked about the they say. So why is it important to lay a research, it's called a research territory, and why it's important to create that research space? I like to tell a story that my dad used to tell me back in the day when he used to sell vacuum cleaners. It was one of his first jobs in those days, and talking about the early 1960s. There were salespeople that used to go, they're all salesmen really, they used to go from door to door trying to sell vacuum cleaners. And he worked for a vacuum cleaner company that sold very expensive vacuums. And what their sales technique, one of their sales techniques was to ask, offer to vacuum a person's house. Now, what they used to be given, these salespeople used to be given a special vacuum model with a canister that was transparent, so that when the vacuum cleaner salesman would operate the vacuum, it was actually possible to see all of the dirt um, being sucked up into the machine. And my dad used to say that one of the best ways of selling or sealing the deal or really getting a sale was to offer to vacuum the person's bed sheets. So actually go up to their bedroom and vacuum the sheets. And he used to say that there would be so much uh, dirt and all kinds of other gunk, sebum and whatever, being sucked up in through the that canister that the owner of the house would actually be able to see. They'd be so aghast that and embarrassed that they'd often feel compelled to buy the machine. Um, and I find that particular anecdote of relevance to academic writing because, first of all, the transparency of the problem. It was clear, it was crystal clear to the person in that house to whom my father was trying to make a sale that there was a problem and what the vacuum cleaner was doing exactly. And the greater the problem, especially in the case of the bed sheets, the graver the problem, uh, the more compelled the person would feel to actually buy what my dad was selling. And so, not to make the metaphor that research is a product to be sold, but in a lot of ways, this particular metaphor applies to academic writing. That the greater the case that you can make, and the more transparent a way, and the greater case you can make that you're addressing a particular issue that needs to be addressed, the more the reader is likely to want to read on and find out what you have to say about it. So one of the articles that was mentioned in the previous video as entering the conversation about hydroxychloroquine, this one here, Rethinking the Role of Hydroxychloroquine in the Treatment of COVID-19, shows a good example of that vacuum cleaner. So here is the abstract. It's kind of a long abstract, but it does a good example. It does a job of showing this concept that I'm referring to. So I'll read it because it's worth looking at. Again, this is the abstract. There are currently no proven or approved treatments for coronavirus disease in 2019. Coronavirus 2009 or COVID-19. Early anecdotal reports and limited in vitro data led to the significant uptake of hydroxychloroquine (HCQ) and to lesser extent chloroquine (CQ) for many patients with this disease. As an increasing number of patients with COVID-19 are treated with these agents and more evidence accumulates, there continues to be no high-quality clinical data showing a clear benefit of these agents for this disease. Okay, so already they're setting the case for a problem here. And they go on. Moreover, these agents have the potential to cause harm, including a broad range of adverse events, including serious cardiac side effects when combined with other agents. And they go on. In addition, the known and potent immunomodulatory effects of these agents, which support their use in the treatment of autoimmune conditions and provided a component in the original rationale for their use in patients with COVID-19, may, in fact, undermine their utility in the context of the treatment of this respiratory viral infection. Specifically, the impact of HCQ on cytokine production and suppression of antigen presentation may have immunologic consequences that hamper innate and adaptive antiviral immune responses for patients with COVID-19. Similarly, the reported in vitro inhibition of viral proliferation is largely derived from the blockade of viral fusion that initiates infection rather than the direct inhibition of viral replication, as seen with nucleoside tied analogs in other viral infections. Given these facts and the growing uncertainty about these agents for the treatment of COVID-19, it is clear that at the very least, thoughtful planning and data collection from randomized clinical trials are needed to understand what, if any, role these agents may have in this disease. To put it another way, going back to the vacuum cleaner metaphor, here is my dad showing all the dirt here. This is all this is just vacuuming. That's all the dirt being swept up into the vacuum cleaner. And here is the sales pitch. Well, given all this dirt, you certainly need this vacuum cleaner. So as you can see, if you look again at our old IMRAD structure here, that introduction was shaped by the conversation, and the results shaped that introduction. So whatever results those authors obtained, that shaped what the conversation that they were introducing in the introduction section. And also shaped by the naysayer, because they know that when they publish this article, that there are a lot of people looking at hydroxychloroquine from many different perspectives, socioeconomic and political and all kinds of different facets of society, and they needed to keep that person in mind. Just as I did in the example I showed in the previous video of looking at the evidence that I had and how it was not only in conversation with other research, but also how I needed to keep that naysayer in mind. It would be great if we could just present our results and that would be it, but we have to actually make a case for them. And that case is made even as early as the abstract. So here you have the abstract from that paper that I published a couple of years back. And just to read the first sentence, while the number of research articles written by non-native speakers of English and published in English medium international journals is on the rise, little is known about the extent to which that trend may be affecting the way in which English is used in that genre. So in that one sentence, I am providing an important background. I'm establishing an important territory. And one key little phrase here is in that second clause of little is known about. So I'm showing, hey, over here, there is a lot of research about non-native speakers and debate about whether or not they're about their participation on the world research stage, but there's still something else that we don't know. So this part here, this very first part of the clause of that first sentence, while the number of research articles written by non-native speakers of English uh, and published in English medium international journals on the rise, is kind of the known information. In a sense, it's the move of they say before I talk about the I say. So it's the first move, the they say, what is known. And you could look at that metaphorically as kind of like a crowded train, a crowded subway car. There's this crowded subway car it's packed with research that already exists in this area. Okay, this is the known information. And then I add, little is known about the extent to which that trend may be affecting the way in which English is used in that genre. So this is the I say. I've gone from the they say, and now I'm talking about the I say. So I've already addressed this packed train, this packed car of research that exists, and now I'm saying, okay, make some room, make some space for me. This is my space. This is where I'm entering in. And this is what John Swales was the first person to notice this or publish about it as early as the 1980s, which he eventually called CARS, which is that researchers create a research space, CARS. They create a research space, and this creation happens in the introduction. So next, we're going to look specifically about how this is done in practice. What are the moves that most often occur in the introduction section to make that research space, and how to make that really clear so that your reader wants to read on and know where to go and where you're going.